Tom was a creature of habit. Every morning he woke up at exactly 6:30 a.m., brewed his coffee, and settled into his small kitchen to watch the news. The rhythm of his days brought him comfort, a sense of control in an otherwise chaotic world. He liked his life simple, predictable, until the tapping began. It started on a Tuesday. Tom was pouring his coffee, the sun barely a sliver over the horizon, when he heard it. Tap, tap, tap at the kitchen window. It was faint, almost hesitant. Tom glanced outside, expecting to see a tree branch brushing against the glass, but there was nothing there. Shrugging it off as the wind, he went about his day. The next morning, the tapping returned. This time it was louder, more deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. Tom paused, his hand gripping the coffee pot, and stared at the window. Again, nothing was there. Just the same old view of his quiet suburban street. He walked over to the window, pressing his face close to the glass. Still, nothing unusual. He almost laughed at himself for being so paranoid. Probably just a bird, he thought. But the tapping didn't stop. Every morning, at exactly the same time, it greeted him. It grew louder with each passing day, more insistent. Tom began to dread the mornings. He'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for that sound to start. Tap, tap, tap. It echoed in his head even when he wasn't near the window. He started avoiding the kitchen altogether, skipping his morning routine, grabbing coffee from the corner cafe instead. One Friday, after a particularly restless night, Tom decided he'd had enough. He would stay up and catch whatever was causing the noise. It had to be something simple, something explainable. He sat in his darkened living room, watching the minutes tick by on the clock. His heart pounded in his chest as the time approached 6:30 a.m. Then it came. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was sharper now, like fingernails rapping against the glass. Tom crept toward the kitchen, each step deliberate, his breath shallow. The tapping grew louder as he neared the window, as if whatever was on the other side could sense him coming. His hands trembled as he reached for the curtain. With a sudden motion, he yanked it aside. There was nothing there, just his empty yard bathed in the dim light of dawn. Tom's breath caught in his throat. He pressed his ear to the window, listening. The tapping was still there, but somehow it was coming from inside the glass. A chill ran down his spine. Tom stepped back, feeling a creeping dread crawl up his body. He looked around his kitchen, half expecting something to leap out at him, but all was still, too still. He heard it again, but this time the sound didn't come from the window. It came from the mirror hanging in the hallway. Tap, tap, tap. His legs moved on their own, carrying him toward the hall. He didn't want to look, but something compelled him to. His reflection stared back at him from the mirror, pale and drawn, eyes wide with fear. But something was wrong. His reflection was tapping, one finger rhythmically striking the glass from inside. Tap, tap, tap. Tom stumbled back, his mind reeling. This wasn't possible. He reached out a trembling hand toward the mirror, and the reflection mirrored his movement exactly. But then, his reflection smiled, a slow, sinister grin that didn't reach his eyes. Tap, tap, tap. Tom turned and ran, but every mirror, every reflective surface he passed, echoed with that same tapping. The windows, the bathroom mirror, even the screen of his phone. All of them showed his grinning reflection, fingers tapping against the glass. He locked himself in his bedroom, where the only mirror was the one attached to his old dresser. He had to get rid of it. He couldn't stand that tapping anymore. He grabbed a blanket and threw it over the mirror, blocking out his reflection. The tapping stopped. Tom let out a sigh of relief, sinking to the floor. But then he heard it again, muffled but unmistakable. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the other side of the blanket. Desperate, he ripped the blanket off, hoping to see nothing but his terrified reflection. But the mirror was empty, completely empty. His reflection was gone. Tap, tap, tap. He felt a presence behind him, cold breath on the back of his neck. Slowly, Tom turned around. The last thing he saw was himself, grinning from ear to ear, tapping the side of his head with one finger, as if to say, "You should have listened." Now, every morning, Tom sits in his kitchen at exactly 6:30 a.m., sipping his coffee and listening to the news. His movements are smooth, automatic, but his eyes are empty, as if his mind is elsewhere. If you look closely, though, you might see a faint outline in the reflection of the window. Someone on the other side, desperately trying to get back.